Welcome to Told History, a place where the threads of forgotten times are woven into vivid stories. Here, we bring the world's hidden histories to life through immersive storytelling. If you find yourself inspired by these tales of the past, consider liking and subscribing. With every click, you help support our journey to uncover remarkable moments that have shaped our world. In today's video, embark on a voyage through the life of Cleopatra, the woman whose choices lit the fire for revolution in Egypt. We'll explore her world, her remarkable mind, and how her bold actions sent ripples across centuries. Let yourself be guided through the corridors of Alexandra's palace and the tumultuous politics of the Ptolemies, where power and survival were never guaranteed. Chapter 1. A Queen Ascends. In the luminous heart of Alexandria, a child named Cleopatra opened her eyes to a world ruled by intrigue and legacy. Descended from the Ptolemies, her bloodline traced back to Alexander the Great himself. Egypt, though resplendent, was torn by rivalries and shifting alliances, a land thirsty for stable leadership and vision that could secure its future. Within the marble halls of the royal palace, young Cleopatra listened to whispered strategies and ancient myths. Her tutors were scholars from distant lands, well versed in mathematics, philosophy, and the arcane riddles of governance. Unlike her peers, Cleopatra revelled in her studisher mind, sharp as the Nile's current, gathering strength for storms to come. Her education became her armour in the precarious world of dynastic rule. Even as a child, Cleopatra sensed the weight of her inheritance. She watched the bustling city below her window, merchants from faraway realms, priests chanting in incense-filled halls, and officials manoeuvring for favour. The young princess learned to recognise both loyalty and deception, absorbing lessons from every corner of her father's court. Alexandria's vibrant pulse flowed through her veins, shaping her spirit and ambition. Egypt's throne was never safe from the tides of ambition. The Ptolemaic dynasty descendants of conquerors teetered on the edge of internal strife and relentless foreign pressure. Cleopatra's youth was marked by coup attempts, shifting allegiances, and the ever-present threat of Rome's expanding shadow. Yet, even amid such uncertainty, her determination stood firm, a quiet promise to both her family and her country. Clever beyond her years, Cleopatra mastered many languages, and the rhetoric of both the Greek and Egyptian courts. She could charm scholars and generals alike, her voice weaving diplomacy and subtle persuasion. It was not just intelligence that distinguished her, but a luminous presence-seer, confidence that made her stand out among siblings and rivals. Destiny, it seemed, watched silently over her shoulder. The palace gardens became a silent school for young Cleopatra. There, among statues of forgotten pharaohs and perfumed blooms, she learned the art of listening to servants, gossip, visiting dignitaries, and the rustling winds that carried rumours of war. With each passing day, Cleopatra absorbed secrets and wisdom, storing them like precious treasures for a day when she would need every ounce of cunning. While her siblings schemed for power, Cleopatra approached the future with quiet observation. She watched her father, Ptolemy VII, make difficult choices, some wise, others disastrous. The throne demanded sacrifice. Cleopatra began to understand the delicate balance between mercy and resolve, for she knew the fate of Egypt often rested on the fleeting loyalty of those around her. She was preparing for a destiny few could bear. In the candle's flicker, Cleopatra combed through scrolls written in many tongues, from the language of her ancestors to those of distant conquerors. Knowledge, she believed, was its own form of power, something that could be neither taken nor squandered. This devotion to learning placed her far above other heirs to the Ptolemaic line, marking her as a beacon of hope for a troubled land. From the grand library's echoing halls to the guarded chambers of the palace, whispers of change gathered like desert winds. Cleopatra began to step into the shadows and light of court intrigue, keen eyes witnessing betrayals, alliances, and moments of rare kindness. Each interaction further honed her instincts. Little by little, her path forward became clearer, a mosaic of history, consequence, and determination. The ascent of Cleopatra was as much a miracle as it was a certainty. Her intelligence, empathy, and curiosity set her apart in a world that tested wisdom as often as courage. The Egyptian horizon shimmered with possibility and peril alike. Yet as Cleopatra's story was just beginning, the gods and the world itself seemed to lean closer, waiting to see what this remarkable young queen would do next. Chapter 2. Winds from the West. The golden halls of Alexandria shimmered beneath a sky charged with uncertainty. Cleopatra's throne was far from secure. Rivalry brewed in the shadows of her younger brother Ptolemy, and ambitious courtiers plotted at every turn. Each move she made was a delicate step in a dangerous dance. Power in Egypt was as fragile as the Nile's flood, and Cleopatra knew her survival depended on outsmarting those closest to her. Nightly, whispers threaded through palace corridors like restless winds. Advisors brought warnings and rumours, yet Cleopatra listened to the silence between their words. She surrounded herself with loyal confidants, a handful she could truly trust. Suspense hung thick in the air, and every glance in the candlelight could be a threat or an alliance. In this storm, Cleopatra honed her intuition, trading innocence for wisdom that came at a steep cost. Across the Mediterranean, another storm approached. Rome, with its legions and insatiable ambition, was turning its gaze eastward. Cleopatra grasped the significance of alliances beyond Egypt's borders. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more treacherous than the last. The world itself seemed to shift beneath her feet as two great civilizations neared collision. The tension-built a momentous encounter was drawing ever closer, altering destinies in its wake. Into this cauldron of uncertainty sailed Julius Caesar Conqueror, whose reputation preceded him, carried by winds that whispered of 1,000 victories. Cleopatra saw in him not merely a foreign general, but a key challenge, perhaps, but also an opportunity that could tilt the balance of power. Her resolve hardened. She would meet this Roman on her own terms, wielding wit and charm as sharply as any soldier's blade. With night cloaking Alexandria, Cleopatra conceived a plan bold enough to startle even her closest confidants. Disguised and hidden within an opulent carpet, she had herself smuggled past palace guards and Roman sentinels into Caesar's quarters. The risk was immense, but so was her sense of purpose. In that stolen midnight hour, Egypt's queen would gamble everything for a chance at survival and, perhaps, true greatness. In the flicker of torchlight, the carpet unravelled, and a figure emerged poised and calm despite the chaos of her arrival. Caesar looked upon Cleopatra, not as a defeated supplicant, but as a ruler in command of her destiny. Their eyes met, and in that moment both rulers recognized ambition reflected back at them. Suspense edged the quiet our new alliance was being forged, one that would ripple through history. Cleopatra spoke her words measured, her tone a blend of humility and subtle command. She recounted her plight with honesty and intelligence, revealing both her vulnerability and her resolve. Caesar was captivated, not only by her beauty, but by the brilliance of her mind. The seeds of trust were sown, rooted deep in mutual respect. In that secret meeting, the course of empire shifted under the gentle persuasion of a queen's voice. From that fateful night, Cleopatra and Caesar's destinies intertwined. Together, they charted a path through the maze of threats and betrayals surrounding the Egyptian throne. Each conversation deepened their understanding, blending Egyptian subtlety with Roman strategy. The palace buzzed with rumours, but the queen kept her counsel, shaping the future with words and glances as much as with decrees. Suspense continued to simmer behind the gilded veils. Suspense continued to simmer behind the gilded veils. Beyond Alexandria's walls, the world watched in fascination and fear. Roman envoys whispered of the queen's cunning. Egyptian elders wondered if the old gods favoured this strange alliance. Cleopatra balanced the approval of her people and the ambitions of Rome with deft skill, never revealing her hand. Suspense unfurled across the land as Egypt's fate now danced in tandem with the whims of distant conquerors, and the queen played her part to perfection. Days melted into nights of strategic council, shadowed by the threat of civil war. Ptolemy's allies plotted to unseat Cleopatra, but Caesar's presence complicated their schemes. The tension was electricany. Misstep could bring ruin. Yet Cleopatra projected calm, guiding her allies and confounding her enemies alike. Every decision weighed heavily, every smile concealed a calculation. Egypt's queen was becoming a master of survival, and her story was becoming a master of survival, and her story was far from over. In the quiet moments between political storms, Cleopatra allowed herself a rare breath of fleeting stillness before the next volley of intrigue. She walked the palace gardens, watching the city slumber, gathering strength from the earth itself. Through shadows and whispers, she remained vigilant, never forgetting how quickly power could change hands. In this calm, she steeled herself for the relentless uncertainty ahead and the revolution she was quietly orchestrating. As the chapter closes, Cleopatra stands poised at the crossroads of history, in a hand extended to Caesar, the other gripping Egypt's legacy. Tension hums, futures unfolding just out of sight. The alliance forged in secret will shape the tides of empires. With wisdom born from hardship and ambition honed by adversity, Cleopatra prepares to face the next storm, determined that Egypt's story, and her own, will end on her terms. Chapter 3. The Lovers and the Lion. In the aftermath of Caesar's death, the corridors of power are shadowed by uncertainty. Cleopatra navigates these treacherous tides with grace and determination. Rome fractures into bitter civil war, leaving Egypt vulnerable. Yet, amidst chaos, the queen's resolve remains steadfast. She sees an opportunity in the shifting alliances of Rome, understanding that her nation's fate will now depend on bold choices and new alliances. It is in this moment of upheaval that Cleopatra encounters Mark Antony in Alexandria. Theirs is not only a political union, but a spark of passion that ignites across continents. Antony, a Roman general of immense charisma and ambition, is drawn to Cleopatra's brilliance and spirit. Together, they weave a tapestry of desire and strategy, marking the beginning of a partnership destined to change the ancient world forever. Evenings in Alexandria become spectacles of lavish feasts and whispered secrets. Cleopatra and Antony, surrounded by candlelight and courtiers, find a rare trust in each other. Their laughter echoes through marble halls, yet outside, rumours spread quickly from palace gates to distant lands. The world watches as Egypt and Rome become entangled in the passions and ambitions of their two most enigmatic rulers. Their love is more than mere affection. It is a calculated alliance of mutual need. Antony seeks the resources and wealth of Egypt to sustain his power against Rome's rivals. Cleopatra, in turn, seeks Antony's military strength and legitimacy to secure her throne. With every gesture and every plan, their destinies become increasingly entwined, each understanding what is at stake for themselves and for their peoples. Threats gather on the horizon. In Rome, Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, watches Antony's every move with growing suspicion. Political tensions escalate as Roman senators whisper of Egypt's influence and fear. Antony's divided loyalties. Cleopatra must remain ever watchful, reading each message and gesture as though her very future depended on it, knowing that enemies lurk in every shadowed corridor of power. Despite the political storms, the romance between Cleopatra and Antony flourishes. Their public displays of affection become legendary, celebrated in poetry and scandalized in Rome. Musicians play soft melodies as the couple sail the Nile together, gazing out across fields of golden reeds, imagining a future where their children inherit a new dynasty and a united realm stretching from Egypt to the heart of Rome. In private, their strategic conversations are just as passionate as their intimate moments. Cleopatra counsels Antony on Egyptian customs, sharing insights on how to win her people's loyalty. Antony, ever the general, promises protection and strength, but he is also swayed by Cleopatra's vision for a grand, independent Egypt. Each decision they make draws their fates closer, binding Egypt and Rome together more tightly with every passing day. As autumn descends upon Alexandria, the couple strengthens their alliance with solemn ceremonies and promises before the gods. Lavish celebrations capture the imagination of the city, mixing Roman traditions with Egyptian grandeur. Foreign envoys and local priests gaze in awe, sensing the magnitude of what unfolds. The air grows heavy with hope and apprehension, for everyone knows that peace hangs by a single, delicate thread. But for every moment of happiness, a shadow grows. Octavian's propaganda in Rome paints Cleopatra as a dangerous seductress, blaming her for Antony's perceived betrayals and Rome's unrest. The people of Egypt place their trust in their queen, but anxiety creeps in. The tension is a low hum beneath the triumphs and celebrations, a warning that the world outside their palace is poised to change forever. Still, Cleopatra and Antony continue with their vision, dreaming of children who will rule an empire united by the Nile and the Tiber. They plan great feasts, commission monuments, and set in motion grand strategies. Theirs is a time of breathtaking ambition, with every action taken under the watchful eyes of rivals and allies alike. History hangs in the balance, as hope flares like torchlight against the night. Yet destiny is never simple, and whisperings of war grow louder with each passing week. Mark Antony's rivals marshal their forces, while envoys bring troubling news from Rome. Together, Cleopatra and Antony ponder their next move, weighed down by the choices that will determine the fate of two worlds. The atmosphere thickens with anticipation, every heartbeat echoing the looming confrontation. As the chapter closes, Egypt's future rests on a fragile alliance, two lovers standing against the relentless tide of history. The night air trembles with uncertainty, passions burning, ambitions colliding. Cleopatra and Antony share a quiet moment, knowing that their dreams shimmer with possibility, but the dawn may bring war. With courage and longing, they prepare to face whatever fate awaits, their story forever entwined. Chapter 4. Empire in Ashes. The final days of Egypt's independence unfold beneath heavy crimson skies. Cleopatra and Antony, weary from endless conflict, look out over Alexandria's battered walls. Shadows lengthen on the Nile as news of Octavian's advancing armies brings dread. The city, once vibrant with hope, now trembles with uncertainty. Every heartbeat echoes the approaching storm, a fate that centuries of pharaohs thought impossible is drawing painfully near. Antony stands on the deck as dusk falls, watching flames flicker on the distant horizon. Cleopatra remains cloistered inside ancient stone halls, every echo a reminder of lost greatness. Their world narrows, each message from the battlefield heavy with despair. The trust between them, once unbreakable, strains under the burden of rumour and whispered betrayals. Alexandria's gardens, silent in the humid night, are haunted by the empire's looming end. Antony's fortunes unravel at the shore of Actium. The winds that once filled Egypt's sails now seem to favour Rome. Ships burn in the harbour, their reflection painting ghastly shapes on the waves. Cleopatra watches from her chamber, tears silent, knowing their power slips away like sand. Allies vanish, hope fades into smoke, as destiny, indifferent and cold, closes its grip around them, both drawing the last golden light from Egypt's future. Desperation clings to the palace walls. Shattered mosaics and overturned statues hint at chaos inside the silent corridors. Outside, Octavian's shadow grows longer, his strategy merciless and cold, Antony's loyal soldiers look away, unable to meet his eyes as orders come down with trembling hands. Each day hope dwindles, and Cleopatra musters regal dignity for her people, even as rumours of her fate unravel in whispered, frightened tones through marble halls that once rang with joyous feasts. The empire bleeds from unseen wounds. At Actium, pride turns to panic as Roman warships pierce Egyptian lines, cutting cherished banners down. Flames leap higher, sadness etched in every captain's face. On the shore, a solitary figure falls to her knees, mourning not just soldiers lost, but an ancient dream collapsing. Cleopatra stands alone at a window, her silhouette swallowed by the gathering night, wondering if anyone will remember the brilliance that was Egypt's heart. Cleopatra's world narrows to the shape of her palacia cage of painted ceilings and dim corridors. Outside, the once mighty Nile grows quiet, as if honouring the empire's fall. Antony paces, burdened by loss and broken trust, each step in his armour an echo of former glory. Together they face a sorrow that words cannot fully hold, aware that their story, and the empire's, will soon become the whispered memory of other, distant times. Winds from the Mediterranean bring the cries of distant battles. The palace itself seems to mourn, marble statues staring with blank, sympathetic eyes. Cleopatra drapes herself in royal linen, a fragile shield against the future she cannot control. Reports of Antony's defeat crash through the halls. Their love, once a force binding east and west, now trembles under the weight of disappointment, promises broken by fate rather than intent, the sorrow as deep as the Nile's ancient bed. At sunrise, the people of Alexandria gather in quiet clusters, eyes wide with fear and heartbreak. They listen to the distant rumble of Roman boots, the empire's heartbeat faltering with each step. Children clutch at their mothers' cloaks, elders bow their heads. Even the marketplace, long a scene of noise and life, is hushed. The last queen of Egypt feels her nation's heart, a bond born not only of power, but of profound and unspoken love. Antony, haunted by visions of glory long past, seeks solace in Cleopatra's presence. Each word exchanged between them is heavy with memory, both tender and mournful. Together they gaze across the palace garden snow overgrown, petals wilting under the weight of defeat. They speak softly of what might have been. Empire in ashes, but for a fleeting moment, hope flickers between them, a delicate spark in the vast darkness surrounding the last of the pharaohs. In the cool shadow of a colonnade, Cleopatra weeps in silence. News arrives of Antony's final stand, then his fall. The city mourns. The queen's attendants move quietly, faces stricken. Each room shivers with the knowledge that the end has come. Yet Cleopatra, composed as ever, plans her last act not for survival, but to shape her memory. Even as Rome closes in, she will not let Egypt's legacy fade without a final, defiant whisper to history. Octavian's legions enter Alexandria, their banners fluttering with cruel triumph. The streets, lined with broken pottery and scattered blossoms, mourn in silence. Cleopatra faces her conqueror with sorrow and grace, her regal bearing unbroken by fear. The weight of centuries settles on her shoulders. The palace is no longer hers, but she stands tall, eyes flashing with the fire of dynasties lost and dreams unfulfilled, the last echo of Egypt's greatness in a Rome-bound world. The sun sets over Alexandria, painting the Nile in tragic golds. Empire lies quiet in the ashes, but the memory endures. Cleopatra's tale will ripple through rivers of time of love and ambition, of grandeur and collapse. As darkness falls, her legacy, stitched together by sorrow and dignity, slips quietly into legend. Egypt's heart slows, but never truly stops, for where stories are told, her spirit continues, forever echoing across the sands of eternity. Chapter 5. The Last Pharaoh's Legacy. The sun sets softly over Alexandria, casting long shadows through the ancient palace halls. Cleopatra moves silently, her thoughts heavy with the fate of her kingdom. The once vibrant city is quieter now, a world teetering on the edge of change. In this tranquil, poignant moment, the last pharaoh prepares to write the final lines of her own story, one that echoes across centuries. Her palace, once alive with the laughter of courtiers and the murmur of politics, has grown hushed. Cleopatra's loyal servants carry out their duties with reverence, sensing the ending that draws close. She gazes out over the city she loves, memories flickering before her eyes, triumphs, sorrows, and the burdens of her crown. The world around her waits in silence, as history itself holds its breath for her final act. Cleopatra's death was not a simple surrender, but a deliberate, defiant choice. Faced with the power of Rome and her own shattered dreams, she saw the threads of her reign unravelling. Rather than let herself become a trophy in Octavian's triumph, she chose dignity and legend, shaping her own fate even in her last moments. This act would ensure her story would live far beyond the fallen walls of her beloved Alexandria. The world mourned, and yet debated how Cleopatra met her end. Some say she pressed an asp to her skin, others suggest poison hidden in a comb. What is certain is the sorrow that swept through Egypt when news of her passing spread. For those who loved her, it marked more than the loss of a queen. It was the closing chapter of a golden age, the fading heartbeat of an ancient realm. With Cleopatra's death, the Ptolemaic dynasty came to a close. Egypt's proud monarchy, stretching back thousands of years, was gone. Roman banners soon fluttered above the city, and a new world dawned on the Nile. The traditions, gods, and splendour of the pharaohs faded quietly, mingling with legend. Yet for a moment Cleopatra's spirit lingered, a whisper threaded through the sands of time. The world outside Egypt changed too, rippling with the consequences of Cleopatra's reign. Her choice-assure alliances, her defiance shaped power in the Mediterranean and bolstered the rise of Rome. Scholars, poets and painters would remember her as a symbol of beauty, intelligence and audacity. The memory of her courage outlived conquest, inspiring hearts and minds long after her kingdom vanished from the map. In quiet reflection, we see the cost of ambition and the weight of legacy. Cleopatra was not only a queen, but a survivor, a strategist and a mother. Her final days were marked by loneliness and resolve, ruler caught between the tides of love and duty. She carved her name into histories, stone not with armies, but with choices that shaped destinies, both her own and the world's. Her legend refuses to fade. Across generations, Cleopatra has become more than a page in history. She is a symbol of resilience amid loss, of brilliance within tragedy. Her face lives in ancient coins, her name in whispered tales and cherished art. Over time, storytellers shaped her into myth, yet at her core she remains a woman bold, vulnerable, unforgettable to those who look closely through the veil of legend. From the darkened halls of Alexandria to the echoing courts of Rome, her memory travels, carried by storytellers and historians across ages. Cleopatra's legacy is layered a lesson in courage, a caution against the tides of empire, and a beacon for anyone who dares to shape their fate. The story of Egypt's last pharaoh persists, woven quietly through the world's collective memory. As we let go of Cleopatra's story, we remember her not only for what she lost, but for all she dared to dream and defend. Her farewell was not the end, but the beginning of a legend that continues to inspire. In the silent corridors of the past, echoes of her presence linger, inviting us to remember, to wonder, and to seek our own place in the tapestry of history. Time drifts onward, yet the story of Cleopatra endures bold, haunting, luminous. Her world may have been conquered, but her legend was never surrendered. Today, as we close the last page of her tale, we honour the legacy she left behind, the courage to rise, the wisdom to lead, and the spirit to become eternal in memory, no matter how the sands of time may shift. So, as night settles over ancient Egypt's ruins, we say a gentle goodbye to Cleopatra the Queen who dared to rule her own destiny. Her life lights the past like a single, unwavering flame. Though history moves onward, her story remains alive in our imagination, forever shaping the dreams of those drawn to the mystery of her reign. Farewell to the last pharaoh, remembered always.